G'day and welcome to Beyond Sobriety, an unofficial AA podcast. This is a place where you will hear real stories of recovery and resilience. I'm Michael and I'm an alcoholic, your host and fellow journeyer on the road to sobriety. As someone who has walked the path of addiction and found solace in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I understand the challenges and triumphs that come with striving for sobriety. And it's with this understanding and empathy we've created this podcast. Our purpose here at Beyond Sobriety is simple yet profound, to provide a platform where individuals can share their experience of alcoholism openly and authentically. Through candid conversation, personal narrative, and expert insights, we aim to inspire hope, foster understanding, and offer a beacon of light to those still navigating the shadows of addiction. So whether you're someone in recovery, a loved one supporting a friend or family member, or simply seeking insight into the journey of sobriety, you're in the right place. Join us as we embark on this transformative journey together. I'm Michael and I'm an alcoholic, and this is Beyond Sobriety. Welcome. Hello and welcome to our very first podcast here at Beyond Sobriety. I'm so excited to have you here as we embark on this journey together. Before I get started with my story, I just want to tell you a little bit about why I started this podcast and what I hope to achieve. We have a statement of purpose, and I will make available on the write-up of this podcast as to what we try and hope we can do while we're interviewing people and getting people to tell their stories. The first thing we want to set in place from the word go is that we want to try and maintain our anonymity. That second A in Alcoholics Anonymous is very important to me. I want to be able to do this under my own name, and to be honest and upfront from the start, I'm using a pseudonym. Michael is not my real name. I did this out of respect for my wife. She's asked me to not use our real name because we don't want the stigma which is associated with alcoholism surrounding our family. Hopefully in time that stigma disappears, but with society being the way it is, until then, we need that second A. So if you hear anybody's voices that you recognize or that you know, or if you even know somebody who's sharing on this, please be respectful of their anonymity. I want to try and make sure that we can shine a light on people struggling with addiction, because we are real and we are here in society, and we need a place that we can go for help. And if we are so anonymous that we are invisible, then we are no help to anybody. I would like to create an honest space where we can be honest about our experiences, our high points, our low points. Addiction is not pretty, and there's going to be times where I might cry, you might cry, and our guests might cry. And you know what? That's okay, because it's an emotional ride that we're on. And what I've learnt about being in the rooms and listening to people share is that it's good when people show their emotions. We need to get them out, because when we bottle them in, it leads to bad behavior, and we all know what bad behavior leads to: addiction. We want to offer support and assistance to those who are seeking it. Those battling with alcoholism, we want to offer support and guidance and a resource for them to aid them on their journey to sobriety. And on top of that, we want to reach those in need, people who have no idea about where to go. I'll have to be honest, I was one. AA was the last place I thought of about going to help, because I thought I could do it on my own. I didn't realize I had a problem. Like many people here listening, I was the last person to realize I had an issue with alcohol. And I'm so glad that I found a room where I could go to, where there was people just as broken as I was, sharing their stories of experience, of hope, and of love. And I found my safe place there. And I hope that this can be a mobile safe place for everybody. So again, welcome. I'm going to start with my story shortly. And I hope that over the coming months, we'll get to know each other really well, and that you can interact with me via the email address that we supply at the end and also in the write-up. And I want to hear your stories. If you want to be a part of this podcast, if you want to share your stories, we want to make a way for you to do that. So at the moment, we're really looking forward to our journey together. I will be interviewing many guests over the coming weeks and months, and we'll be putting out a podcast every week, hopefully on a Sunday. And we want to try and be as consistent as we can be with that, because you know how we alcoholics are. little bit here, a little bit there, and the goal is not to lose traction. We want to do some real help for those in need. So I'm excited to start, and I'm going to start with my story. As I sat in my room with the microphone in front of me, I couldn't help but remember the times that I would drive home from work at 4 o'clock and I'd have my bottle of wine between my legs. I'll be petrified when I was driving home from work. I'll be scared of what would happen when I'd drink that wine, and I'd also be scared of what would happen when I wouldn't drink the wine. To be honest, it didn't matter if it was wine or vodka or beer. It was all about the alcohol. And I'll sit here in front of me with a microphone with the same trepidation of going, what am I about to embark on? What am I about to see? What kind of stories am I going to hear through the next few months that is going to change my life and your life? And I really hope that it makes a difference, because, we learn through our inventory work that, we often get motivated to our actions by fears. And I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want to live in hope, and I want to live in love. At the start of this year, I promised myself I would start looking at people's motives in the good and try and see the good in everybody. And that's what I've tried to do. And even though we might hear some harsh stories during our times, I'm really looking forward to trying to see the good in everybody, because I believe there's a lot of good there. I started drinking many years ago, but I was probably a late bloomer according to most people. I've been sober for nearly 3 years now, and I'm loving being sober. But being sober itself is not without its challenges. I didn't drink when I was growing up. I might have had the occasional, getting drunk when I was in high school, but I wouldn't consider myself a problem drinker until I reached my late 20s. I had a career in the Navy for many years, and I would bring my friend and I home from work. We would carpool together on the way home from work. And what would happen is that he would stop at the bottle-o every time he was driving. And every time I was driving, he would stop at the bottle-o. He'd ask me to pull over, and he would get a six-pack of beer or whatever it was. I can't really remember. And he would always offer me one, like a good passenger would. You're driving, here, have a beer. And for many months, I said, no, I don't really drink. I probably should let you guys know now that I am from a very religious background, and drinking in our religion is very much considered a no-no. It's a definite do not do, and that's always been in the back of my head. Having said that, I've never really been one to follow the rules. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that. So I would drink with my friend, and he told me that he was actually in AA for about 17 years, and then he started drinking again. And he said it was okay because he could control it, and he knew what he was doing, which, to be honest, was an absolute lie. He now is in a very dark place. He's stuffed his body up with alcohol and with other drugs, anything really to disassociate his brain from the reality of what's going on. And I can really feel that now. My heart goes out to my friend, and I know what he's going through, because he really introduced me to what I see was a very slippery slope. After a few months of saying no, I had a beer. I had one or two. And because I didn't drink much, it was really powerful. It affected me. I felt great. The taste was good. I enjoyed it. It went down real smooth. And after a long, hard day at work where there was a lot of people I didn't like and he didn't like, it was good to sit down with a male friend and just drink and just talk about, people who pissed us off throughout the day. And every now and then I would have two. And every now and then I would have three. And I didn't at the time see the progression. All I know is that it made me feel better. And I would only ever drink with him for about the first 6 or 7 months until a light bulb went off in my head and it said, hey, you can have this anytime you want. And so, I was still trying to be a good boy. And I thought, oh, well, no, I'll not drink on these days because I'm going to work and you don't do this. And so it would be a Friday night treat. I would go down and I'll get some alcohol and I'll drink it. And I'd have to drink it in secret because my wife couldn't know about it. And I was experimenting with it. I was looking for that buzz. I was looking for that feeling of disassociation from reality. Anything to escape where I was. And it's funny because at the time I wasn't particularly down or depressed. I can look back now and I can really see that. But it was a slippery slope for me, and sometimes I'd drink too much, sometimes I'd mix it, and I'll be in the bathroom vomiting and I'll make up some excuse. And I guess it's probably important to say that I've been lying about my drinking forever. It's always been a lie. It's always been deceitful. Because, and I know this might not resonate with everybody, however, for me it was a taboo. We don't drink at all. There was no alcohol in my house at all. We wouldn't have that. It was, you might buy it once for a recipe, but then it would go because we didn't drink. And so I had to lie about my drinking from the word go. That lasted for a few years, and I kind of was a little bit worried about it then until we moved house. My work moved me away, and I said to myself, no, I won't drink anymore. I won't drink anymore because I know it's not good, and I shouldn't be doing this, and I wanted to concentrate on other things. So I was able to stop drinking for about 6 months or so when I got to my new workplace. I got to my new house. We changed states. And then the pull came back. What do we say? Cunning, baffling, powerful. Alcohol. It came back and I couldn't resist it. I went back and I thought, we'll just start drinking a little bit here, a little bit there. And I need to say this was at a particularly low point in my relationship. It was in a particularly low point with being content at work. Things weren't working out. I wasn't happy at home. I wasn't happy with my life. And so I decided to start drinking. And again, I would say that I look back now, and maybe I'm kidding myself, but I think I could have stopped at those early stages. But again, I didn't realize there was a problem. I didn't realize that I was heading down a path that would affect the rest of my life and would nearly destroy me and lead me to places where I wanted to, and at times I tried to kill myself. But I wasn't happy. And so what I realized was it's easier to drink and fall asleep than it is to lie awake at night and cry and be sad and be discontent with everything around me. And so that's exactly what I did as often as I could. I would drink. I would take my son, he was very young, and say, hey, Mum's gone out, let's go on an adventure. And we'll run across the park, we'll run across the creek, and we'll go and get a bottle of alcohol. And I obviously wouldn't share it with him, but we'll get that. He wouldn't know what it was because he was only very little. And I'll drink that, and I'd happily drink that. And I would make sure that I would measure my drinks so I knew exactly how much I was drinking because I didn't want to overdo it. And more importantly, I didn't want to underdo it. It's very important to not underdo it because there's no point. If you're not going to get drunk, hey, what's the point in drinking? That was my attitude, and I'm sure a lot of you out there can relate to that. If I had half a bottle of wine when in my drinking days, I'd look at that with contempt and be like, there's no point touching this because it is not going to even touch the sides. The only reason I'll drink that is if I had another 2 bottles there to get me through the night. And it was a little bit later, probably 2 or 3 years later, that I realized, and it's a light globe moment, alcohol's good like that. And it said, hey, you can have this anytime. You don't have to wait till Friday night or Saturday night to have a drink. You don't have to wait till Thursday night pay to have a drink. Alcohol's cheap. Aldi's are selling it for $2.70 for a bottle of wine. You can put that and you can go do some shopping and, nothing will even show up on your credit card. And so, hey, that's what I did. Almost every night for, I'd say approximately 3 years, 2 to 3 years, I would drink. I would drink to a point where I would almost pass out or definitely pass out. I would measure my drinks and I would get to a point where at 4 o'clock, and that's why I said at the start of this, it was 4 o'clock, it was after work. I had very strict rules around my drinking. I don't drink at work. I didn't drink before work. I'll drink at about 4 o'clock, I'll drink at about 4 o'clock when I was leaving, and I'll time it so that I would be perfectly drunk by the time I got home. Just enough that hopefully people wouldn't notice, and enough that I could not have it on my breath, and enough that I could function, because I'll go home every night and I'll cook dinner. And again, it will be easy because by the time I finish cooking dinner, my wife will get home, the kids will be there, I would be ready to fall asleep, and I would pass out most nights. I would sleepwalk because of my drinking. I would wake up and I'd be, how did I get on the couch? Or how did I get in this room? Or I'll be sleeping on the floor in my son's room with a book in my hand. Or I would be somewhere else in a random spot. And it's because of my drinking. It was about at this point that my wife started to realize that something was wrong. You can't really hide this stuff for the long term. And my drinking was getting more and more. It started off being, hey, I only need 1 bottle of wine to feel that buzz. And then it was 1.5 bottles. And then it was 2 bottles. And then the bottles became too big and too clunky, and it was hard to hide them. So I had to go to something stronger. So I went to fortified wine. Fortified wine is, much stronger, and you can drink it. And, I'd buy, 2 or 3 bottles of those, and I would be at the shop. I would go to the toilet, the bathroom, the disabled toilet, and I would scull that entire, 9 standard drinks or 13 standard drinks. The fortified one was about 13 to 14. So I'd scull that, and then I'll go home. And it was good because you could get away with that fairly quickly, and it will give you what you needed. One of the things I was really stressed about was the next morning. I always remember the next morning, and I'll get up for work early. I was lucky enough I didn't miss any time of work. I didn't call in sick. I didn't lose any jobs. I was a bit of a yet. But I would hate that next morning when I would wake up or go to work, and I knew what time my wife would get up because she used to get the kids up, and I'd dread that first message. Sometimes it would be, hey, good morning, how are you? And then my heart would just go, great, nothing bad happened last night. But so many times it was, what happened to you last night? Did you take something? Did you do this? Or why did you do X, Y, Z? Or there might just be a photo of a bottle I forgot to hide. And it would be a message like, your son found this. Your son was drinking this. I would hide alcohol everywhere. I'd put vodka in water bottles. I would put fortified wine in Gatorade bottles. I would do everything I possibly could to try and hide my drinking. Because again, drinking was taboo for us. And it's crazy the lies you tell yourself. I would say, if it wasn't for my religion, I would be able to drink openly and I wouldn't have a problem. And I see that is an absolute lie because you're only kidding yourself. I would dream about buying a boat and stocking it full of alcohol, any alcohol I wanted, and having a safe place where I could go and spend time alone with my drinking. My wife, my children, my job, everything in my life was an obstacle in the way of my true love, which was drinking. And it really snuck up on me, as I'm sure it snuck up on a lot of people listening here today. And I realized I had a problem probably about 6 or 7 months before I actually walked into the rooms of AA. My wife knew I had a problem. She would talk to me every now and then, or she would argue and she would get angry at me a lot and would have arguments. And to be honest, a lot of the time I'll just switch off because I knew that this would pass and I'll be able to get another drink because there was one hidden somewhere and I'll be okay. So I'll just switch off. I completely disassociated with our relationship for a long period of time. And I was hopeless. But I realized I had a problem when I kept on saying, I've got to stop. And I'd pour out the alcohol and I'd go, no, I'm not going to drink. And without a doubt, the next day, about probably 2 or 3 o'clock when I was on my way home or about to finish work, I'll be I'll just find myself driving through the bottle-o. I knew where all of them were. I knew how much it cost. I would always carry cash with me, and so there would be no record on any transaction about buying alcohol. There would be nothing like that. So I'd carry cash so I could get away with it. And without a doubt, every single time I would do it. And so finally one day I thought, you know what, I'm going to ask for help. And so it was during COVID, and I remember standing on the back area of my house, and I was on the phone to addiction places and rehab places, and I would talk to them and have an intelligent conversation. I would say, I'm struggling with this area. I think I need to go to rehab. And they would say, look, you sound fine. You know, you should be okay. And what's amazing is that none of them even suggested alcohol, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't even think of it. It's in all the movies. It's all around. We make jokes about it. AA is everywhere. It's in almost every cartoon, and yet they didn't suggest that, which I thought was really strange, looking back in hindsight. So I wasn't able to get help there. I couldn't afford to go, look, I'm going to take 2 or 3 weeks off work and just go to a rehab and check myself in. There was a massive wait. You know, I'd feel guilty leaving my wife to do everything by herself. So I kept on drinking. I was being sacrificial, and I kept on drinking because I couldn't let my wife do all this stuff by herself. After another couple of months, I reached out to my doctor. I told him how much I drank, and he kind of looked at me like, oh, wow, that's a lot. At that point, it was probably close to 20 standard drinks a night. And I measure my drinks because of my time in the Navy. We had a lot of lectures about, you know, the dangers of alcohol and how to measure your drinks so you don't blow over and when you can and can't drive. And even though during that time, most of the time, I wouldn't consider myself a fairly active drinker, I do remember all the statistics. So I knew how much I was drinking. I knew by the end of it, it used to take me about 20 standard drinks over the course of about 4 hours most nights. And I had to make sure I got that. Otherwise, I'll just go nuts. So I went to the doctor and told him that. And he gave me what I absolutely loved as an alcoholic. He said, you can't stop drinking because you could die. I'm like, great. Gotta go home, tell my wife this because I now can't stop drinking. He gave me a prescription for some pills and some stuff and said, look, you can't take these pills while you're drinking because it's really bad for you and it can stuff you up. And so, you know what I did? I put them all together. You know, I took the pills with alcohol. And he said, look, you need to try and limit your drinking, try and go down day by day, you know, try and have 15 standard drinks this week and then 10 standard drinks next week. And you know what? I really did try. I promise you guys, I really did try. But clearly he doesn't understand that mental obsession that takes over when you start drinking. It's not possible to stop like that. It just can't happen. And I felt hopeless. I had an assignment due. I was studying at this time and I had an assignment due. And I'd overdone it a little bit with the alcohol. And I had an assignment due that night at 12. And so I had to do this assignment. And I also was teaching something online. And it was a Wednesday night. And I remember this very specifically. And this is what made me reach out to AA. But I'd overdone it and I drank too much. And I knew I wouldn't be able to do this teaching in the state I was in. And I knew I had to get this assignment done. So I walked over to the cupboard where we keep my son's ADHD medicine. And I thought, I'll take 2 of these. Should pick me up. I'll have a coffee. I'll be able to get my assignment done. And as she was there teaching online for what I should be doing, she looked over at me and I had my hand where the pills were. And I saw the realization as she realized what I was doing. And I still remember to this day the absolute disgust that was in her eyes. And I looked at myself and I felt like an absolute piece of shit. I was stealing my son's medicine so that I could act normally because I had drunk too much continually. It didn't stop me. I took it, finished my assignment. I passed, by the way. We didn't talk about it that night, probably because my wife was furious. And I woke up and I went to work. And what happened that day was I was there thinking, I have to do something about my drinking. I thought I got to a point where I came to myself and I realized that this is going to destroy me. It's going to destroy my life. And I have to do something about my drinking. So I Googled Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thought, I wonder if these people can help. Again, light bulb moment, but probably a God moment, high power moment, whatever you want to call it. I spoke to a man that became my sponsor, and he had the phone, and he said, look, there's a place you can come. There's a meeting on tonight. Why don't you come along? And I said, okay. I got the time, and I got the day, and I got the address. And about half an hour after I got off the phone, there was a friend of mine who was sick in the hospital. He died. And I left work early to go see him after he died, and to be with his family and to support them. And as I was sitting there in the hospital with this guy who just died, the only thing I could think of is my wife cannot get angry at me for drinking because I've had to sit with someone who's dead. Like, she won't get angry at me for this. She won't get angry at me for last night because of this. And yeah, I did what I had to do. I hugged people. I said that it was going to be okay because, their father, their friend, their dad had just died. And I was there with them in the hospital for a period of time. And I went back to work, and I remembered that we had the meeting on that day. And so I knew where it was. However, because my brain was so fried, I forgot the time. So I got there about an hour late, and I sat around, and by the time I got there, again, it was past 4 o'clock, so I was drunk. I was drunk for most of that time. I was drunk for most of my time the first few months in AA. It took me about three months to stop drinking. It took me about 3 months, I'd say. And it's coming up in about two more months. It'll be my 3-year anniversary. About a month ago, I got my 1,000 days up, and I decided once I stopped drinking, and I consider that I have stopped drinking now, but I decided that once I had stopped drinking, I can't go back. I've seen some people in the rooms, they drink a little bit here, a little bit there, they come in the rooms, come out of the rooms, and I realized that if I do that once, I'm out, I'm done. I won't be able to recover from that. This is, maybe still the disease talking, I don't know, but this is how I feel right now, and who knows, in 6 months' time it might change. But if I pick up alcohol again, it's because my life has gone to shit, and I'm going to end it all. I've had some really, really low points in my drinking, and I don't ever want to be there again. I have tried to kill myself. Probably in all fairness, not the best attempt, but it could have ended with me dead. And there's too many people that has happened to. I'm excited that I can finally really share my complete story with everybody, and I've left a lot out. And if I'm guarded at times with the information I do share, it's not because I want to protect any reputation that I have. It's because of the second A, the anonymity. If I share a story and I realize that it might put that in jeopardy, not just for me, but for any of the guests that we interview here moving forward, then I will definitely edit that out. But the idea is that we can be safe here, and we can share our stories. I'm really looking forward to seeing what will happen through this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed listening to my story, and I'm so glad that you've made it this far on the podcast, on the first podcast here, and I look forward to seeing what will happen in the future. Let's close by saying the serenity prayer together. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back and keep listening. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us here today on Beyond Sobriety. Before we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a gentle reminder. If you happen to recognise anyone who shared their story on this podcast, I urge you to respect their anonymity and privacy. Let's create a safe space where individuals can feel empowered to share their experiences without fear of judgment or disclosure. If you found today's episode helpful or inspiring, I encourage you to share Beyond Sobriety with someone who might benefit from it. Together, we can spread awareness, support, and hope to those still struggling with alcohol addiction. Remember, your feedback is invaluable to us. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or stories you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on anonymousaa01011990@gmail.com. Thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, stay strong, stay sober, and remember, you're not alone in this journey. I'm Michael, and I'm an alcoholic.